know you talk a lot about identity and how that is critically important to the people that you work with. But from my perspective, in terms of coaching coaches, a lot of times I think it's equally important for other coaches to understand who it is that they identify as, right?
Yeah.
And I understand from our conversations that we've had, some of the stories that you shared with me, your identity started to form around 3rd or 4th grade.
Yeah, because I think for some people, maybe you get into fitness later in life or sports gets you into it. But for me, I had a Mr. Donnelly. So Mr. Donnelly, he was my 3rd grade gym teacher. And before I had met him, and he was in my life, so I was born in Dominican Republic.
Okay.
And
Really?
yeah, I was born in Dominican Republic, and my parents divorced. My mom brings us, so a single mom raised us. She brings us back to where she grew up. So we had a lot of the same teachers that she had as well, which was kind of a cool thing. But she made a lot of sacrifices so that we could be at her school as
Sure.
well.
So she started there, moved to Dominican Republic, and then came with you guys back.
Yeah, for like
Okay.
12 years she
Wow.
was there, and then the divorce, and then she came back to New York with us.
Okay.
Where for her, she just felt like that was going to be the best place that we would be able to get a head start. But it also required a lot of sacrifices too, because she couldn't really afford the cost of living there. So for us to be able to just grow up there, at least my sister and I saw it as a privilege, because we knew that she was making sacrifices for us to be in that community, in that district, with those teachers that she had.
Interesting.
Okay, so my Mr. Donnelly story. Mr. Donnelly was my 3rd grade gym teacher, and when I moved here, I had a lot of trouble with just speaking and articulating myself, mostly because of having been exposed to Spanish and English, and it just wasn't coming out right. And I also, because I was in a very affluent community, I just kind of didn't identify in school. And
You guys didn't have a lot of means and...
no, yeah, and I think maybe that was even that young, I think I felt that we were different in that community, maybe from my mom, good and bad. of
Sure.
course. So in 3rd grade, we have a physical fitness test, and I was very shy. Imagine the kid who, and I remember as far back as kindergarten, 1st grade, 2nd. I remember being the kid that if the teacher wanted you to speak up or wanted someone to participate, I'd immediately be like, "Can I go to the bathroom?" and try to get out of the room, get out of the space, because I felt uncomfortable to expose myself and because I didn't connect.
Sure.
So then my Mr. Donnelly, gym teacher, I go into class and they're doing the presidential physical fitness test.
Okay.
And the first thing we have to do is go over to the track and run a mile. And I'll never forget it because this is literally where I had an identity. So I run the mile and I finish, and I set a school record. I crossed before 7 minutes. And I remember just thinking,
7 minutes?
Yeah, it was
Wow.
under 7 minutes.
Yeah, and how old were you?
I was in 3rd grade.
Oh,
Yeah.
Okay. I
Yeah.
think I'd still struggle with that, but okay. Gotcha.
So then Mr. Donnelly came, and I'm just happy that I did something that I felt it was just a cool thing. But I remember him coming over and saying, "Kiddo, you have your place in the world. You need to go home. You need to tell your mom that you're going to be a runner. You need to, when you grow up, this is what you're going to do." And I remember I was just so proud, and I immediately went home, told my mom that I want to run. Let me run. And she said, "Well, Jenny," it's her niece, "Jenny runs. She could probably put you in some races." And this is 3rd grade. I'm like, "Sure, whatever. I'm game. This is what Mr. Donnelly said I need to do."
I'm done with school. I'm just going to be a
yeah,
runner.
This is what I'm going to do. I was literally a kid that would come home and ask to go running. I would just go run around the block.
Probably a lot of parents that would like their kids to respond that way.
Yeah. And my mom, I remember too, she would ride her bike next to me so that I could go run. But it was a week later that I went into my first 5K, and literally the rest was history. I was like, this is where I'm supposed to be. And then you flash through a few years later. Okay, so this is where Mr. Donnelly's story gets really interesting, because 5th grade then they ask you what do you want to be when you grow up. You put it in your yearbook, and
Yep.
I printed in there. I still have the yearbook, 5th grade yearbook, and it says in there health teacher or gym teacher. I literally wrote that, and not knowing that this was going to be where I ended up, but I wanted to end up here.
No, it's probably
Okay.
impossible to reflect on this completely accurately,
Yeah.
but I'm still interested. Now, do you think you put that I want to be a health teacher,
So I could be
particularly because you wanted to be the identity of the person that was nice to you, or do you think you also understood like what it was that he is doing for other people?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
He made me feel good in a moment. Like he gave me a place, and I like was very aware that that was like life changing for me.
Okay.
Because all of a sudden it didn't change how I acted in class,
Yeah.
but it changed how I acted in like extracurricular activities, like field day. I was then the kid who was like, I'm going first, and like really into it, because every time I was in that space, which was like my comfort zone, then it became, I was excited to show up.
Now, did you find yourself though wanting to coach other kids at that
Yes.
time? Really?
Yes.
Okay, so it was
Which
dual.
is the crazy thing.
Okay.
Which is the crazy thing. Because I've always journaled and just like thoughts, ideas, and in middle school, I went to a running camp.
Okay.
And in there, like, at the end of camp, then the kids that you met would kind of write a note to each other. And I go back through and I'll look in there and I see what other kids have, and I forget about this now. Like, I found it because I just recently moved 6 weeks ago. And I open up the journal and it says things like, Alicia, thank you so much for that ab workout. Like, I want good abs like you. I want to, can you help me with this? I want to get stronger. I know you lift. And that was 6th grade.
Oh my
Sixth,
gosh.
7th grade.
Okay.
Um,
So it sounds like you had it all figured out in elementary school.
At
which...
least my comfort zone. I have my
Yeah,
comfort
sure.
zone figured out.
Okay, so I would assume from hearing that, now I think I know a little bit more contextually about the story, but being new coming into the story, I would think that from there you had this clear trajectory into being a coach, whether that was a physical ed teacher or a coach for individuals, a personal trainer or something
Yeah.
like that. Was that the clear trajectory for you? Did you go into college and then
Okay,
start
so
coaching?
this is where it's interesting, because I thought that it had to be, and this is, okay, so a couple of reasons. So I thought that it had to be something that was a hobby. And that's mostly because of being raised by a single mom. I felt that like she made these sacrifices for us. My sister went an extremely corporate route, even though she's my younger sister. Extremely corporate route, lawyer. I felt that I needed to do something that gave my mom the language that she could like be proud of to share.
Yep.
And so I kind of shied away from actually doing fitness. Like it was always the side thing that I did. So I kind of tried to do what didn't feel right, but I thought I was supposed to do, which was continue to go that corporate route. And I noticed very quickly that I was uncomfortable there because I'm a creative. And in that space, I felt kind of stifled.
Sure.
But I tried to do the best I could, right? But it was not my own expectation. I was doing it for the wrong reasons.
Sure, and you were doing it for selfless reasons, right? But you were operating in a way based on someone else's ideals or values,
Yeah.
it sounds like.
And
right?
she wasn't even saying that to
Sure.
me. It's just I felt that that was the best way she could be proud of me.
Yeah.
Like to be able to go and say, my daughter has this title.
Is a lawyer,
Yeah, she's a
a
lawyer.
doctor.
Yeah.
I bet there's so many people that can relate to that.
Yeah.
Whether they're immigrants, moving here, the first generation, or just people who have, been here for.
And I think too, it came from conversations where I would try to explain. So like a creative gets into projects,
Okay.
and like as a creative, I would get into something, and to me it was like an exploration. Like I was learning more about myself with it, and I always felt that I was under this umbrella of health, fitness. But to other people that couldn't quite get how I was teaching myself, because how I was teaching myself is different than academic.
Okay.
Like I was kind of this unstructured, I know I have to experience these things, I know I have to expose myself to people in these ways, create these little pockets of communities, kind of see how I engage with them. To me, it was a learning experience. That was like continued ed for me, to
Okay.
be able to kind of have these little projects that I would do on the side. But to someone who's not, my mom's definitely, she doesn't fall into the category of creative, she's very much so, I need to do what's best for my family, and these are sacrifices I'm making. She lives definitely a different life from a different perspective. To her, it looks scattered and
Okay.
confused.
Got it.
Where to me, I was like, precision. I'm like, I have to know this before I can do this.
Yeah, the vision is clear to you. Articulating it in this
Yeah.
clear way for other people might have been challenging still.
Extremely challenging.
Okay, so currently I want to kind of take audit of where we are, right? So
Yeah.
you're working in a corporate type setting, right?
Yeah.
Doing wellness
Mhm.
programs for Harley or someone
Yeah.
else? Okay.
Yeah. I was
Harley
at Harley-
Davidson.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
I was at Harley Davidson.
While simultaneously doing projects on the side. What are these projects?
So I wanted to, when I first moved to Pennsylvania, I noticed that a lot of women did these like Mary Kay parties, these Tupperware parties, things like that to socialize.
Sure.
And I went to one where we were all sitting, and I wanted to go to them when people invited me because I didn't know anybody. That was I moved to Pennsylvania after college. So like I was just trying to network really
Okay.
and just kind of build some friendships.
Sure.
So I would say yes to these, and what I noticed is that like all the women were sitting with all these snacks and then like complaining about like how they felt. And I'm like, but we're eating chips and like pretzels and like all these things that like, okay, sometimes fine in the setting, but I wondered, I'm like, is this your habit though? So I kind of, okay, so I started to do, I called it a Live Well weekend. It was this like immersive weekend where when I was there, I came up with the idea.
While you're at one of these events.
Yeah, while I'm at this like event, it was like a combination of like Tupperware and Mary Kay. And I was like, well, listen, I feel like this is really unproductive sitting here eating all this stuff and talking about things that we can actually easily solve for. So why don't we do this? And this is at a time where Biggest Loser was really popular and people were seeing these like dramatic weight losses of 40 pounds in a week. And then they were reflecting on the fact that they couldn't even lose a half a pound and they were feeling defeated. I'm like, no, that's a win. That's a win. If you could control all the variables, you can win too, but that's not realistic. So like, what does a win look like then in your world based on like all these other moving parts and other, you know, priorities as well that you have to do? Like, how are you then scheduling your time in there for you?
Okay.
Most of the time, the women were not. So I decided to just, okay, what we can do is everyone's gonna come over to my house and I'm gonna keep you there from Friday until Sunday, and I'm going to control everything. Now, granted, I had a really small house, so yeah, it was really intense. I was like literally having this like moment of like, I must prove a point right now because it's going to change their life, potentially. I hoped. So I had a really small house. So someone else that I was talking to there offered their house out.
It's like, thank God.
Yeah. I'm like, I don't know where I'm going to put any of these people. And she had a lot of property, and so I was like, okay, so what we're going to do then is I'm gonna keep you there from Friday. You can arrive at 6. We're gonna have a discussion, like a debriefing. You're gonna weigh in. We're gonna talk about what we're gonna do. And I like created this like whole itinerary of exactly what the weekend was gonna look like. How they were gonna come in, they were gonna weigh in, what we were gonna talk about every time we cooked, how it was gonna be a food demo, and you're not allowed to leave until Sunday afternoon.
Incredible.
And
Okay.
I was like, I must like control all of these things so that I can prove. And the point I wanted to prove was that yes, in the ideal situation, you're going to lose weight, right? But understand that it would have to be, okay, their expectation was that they were defeated if they weren't losing 30, 40 pounds like they saw on TV.
Okay. Like they weren't making enough progress.
Yeah, exactly. So I want to show them, okay, yeah, you could have that tremendous jump start, but like take the principles that we're learning here then and implement them in the right way in your life. Like, so I'm going to give you that jump start. I'm going to show you how wonderful that is. But I want you to actually learn that like everything was controlled, and then see the contrast that like, okay, now I don't feel defeated then because I do understand what control is. Control is someone at least giving you your meal, giving your agenda. I'm like, you really couldn't live like that.
Yeah.
Because it's a completely controlled environment on TV.
I think, yeah, it's an interesting point. And I think what it comes down to is that a lot of people don't really have a problem with the initial weight loss.
Yeah.
They have trouble actually just keeping it up.
Yeah.
Right? It's the
So I'm like, here, let me give you what you want, which is that jump start. But like now when you reflect on it, you can be like, oh, everything was controlled, so this is okay now that I'm consistently losing a half a pound, or that I maintain my weight.
Okay.
Because
okay.
I no longer have that same, but I do have control of these elements. You know?
Okay. Yeah, I'm going to unpack that a bit. So, at the time, first of all, the audacity. So, at the time, were you coaching people already?
Yeah, I was training people on the side.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like at home kind of workouts?
I was actually at a gym.
A gym?
Yeah,
Okay,
at a
okay.
gym.
So you felt relatively comfortable in that setting. And then you go and create this kind of wellness retreat, if you will, at
Someone
else's
came
house.
with an RV,
Oh
and
my
and like brought her
goodness.
because she had sleep apnea. So
Okay.
she's like, I can't. And the
That's
rest
incredible.
of us pitched tents.
How many
literally
women were there?
And the neighborhood kids started to show up. I was like, oh my God, I'm having an impact on them too. I would say there was probably about 10 women.
Okay. Damn.
Yeah.
Okay. This is amazing. So what you focused on doing in terms of help me understand this last
Yeah.
part. So instead of the focus wasn't about how can we help you lose the maximum amount of weight this weekend. Instead it was, okay, we can lose some weight this weekend, but instead I'm going to leave here and you're going to leave here more importantly
Yeah.
with the tools that you need to continue either losing weight or keep that weight off?
Yes, because it was so immersive.
Okay.
The fact that when we cooked, it was a food demo, and
Sure.
I was explaining the food and what to eat and what
Just
to
how you
look
do it for yourself.
Exactly. Yeah.
Empowerment weekend. if you
Yeah.
will.
And then even just showing like accountability. This is the agenda, and we're accountable to it.
Yeah.
This is what we scheduled for this weekend. These are the priorities we scheduled for this week, and we're going to adhere to it.
Yeah.
And then this is the result you got. And yes, some of the women lost 8, 10 pounds in that weekend. And then, but I made a very hard point at the end that this is like a gift. This is your jump start.
Yeah.
But understand that the principles is what you're supposed to take away from it.
Sure.
I kind
sure.
of proved my point that yeah, you can control everything and it's going to be this.
Yeah.
But let's take what you can control yourself and continue to move forward with
I
it.
think a lot of times people will look at that and they see rigidity or like structure as limiting freedom. But I think what we've realized and what
Yeah.
you've empowered these women with is that sometimes that structure actually gives you the ability to have more flexibility, more freedom in
Yeah.
other areas of your life.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Um,
It's like a stubbornness about your goals, but then flexibility in your methods to get there.
Ooh,
Right?
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. Can you say
Yeah.
that again?
It's stubbornness for your goal, or now I got it.
It's always
It's a matter
hard
of
to say
being
again.
stubborn about your goals and flexible in your methods. And I think Tony Robbins said some version of that. For
Hey,
sure.
You got credit
Credit
here.
to him. Credit
I
to me
love
for
it.
implementing it in this moment.
There you go. So after this weekend, you're still doing this kind of dual role, right?
Yeah.
Corporate wellness and this. What got you to the point where you felt the courage to make the jump, leave the safety and comfort of corporate America, and make your passion a profession?
Okay, so that was a slow transition, and it was because I needed to have certain experiences to get that deeper awareness that there was friction and discomfort in my life because I wasn't aligning with where it was I was meant to be.
Okay.
So I'm working at Hurley, and I meet. So my next Live Well weekend, I was working at Hurley, and I met a woman there named Kelly, and it kind of was like we were destined to meet because she would come into the fitness wellness center there, and she'd jump on the treadmill and just walk, and I'd go over to her and I kept like egging her on. I was like, "Don't you want to do more than just walk? Like, why are you just walking? Let me give you something." And she's like, "No, I'm not ready for you." And like she'd continue walking, and like it was just, like subtle like pushing where she's finally just like let down her guard. I was like, "Why don't we just do like a woman workout? Like, what is it that you kind of like want to work?" And she's like, "I want to work on my butt. I want to work on my legs." Like her son made some sort of joke about her stomach, and so she's like, "Let's work on that." So it kind of became this joke. I was like, "Okay, let's just do these fun workouts, kind of around." The things that you want to target.
Sure.
And like it just gave us the opportunity then to kind of just have these like fun conversations when she'd come in to work out. And I knew that it was giving her a reason to show up, so I kind of wanted her to buy into that first. Like, this can be fun, like it, and then you can kind of build in the more like routine and like the more. She was definitely there more for the experience than even the results.
Okay.
It was clear that we were both gaining something from our conversation with each other.
I just got chills. I mean, there's
Yeah.
something really beautiful about that. And
Yeah.
you almost wish that more people were focused on the experience of it
Yeah.
rather than the results.
Yeah, like it was fun to say, "Oh, we're targeting your glutes today," or, we're targeting your butt, but we were both there for a completely different reason. But what it did was it helped you to have the accountability, and like that's the game changer too, when you actually feel accountable to
Sure.
like being consistent with something. And then, so then our friendship went from there. We actually went for. We found out that she didn't live too far from my house. And so I was like, okay, I know you like walking, let's go out for a walk. We walked for 8 miles and literally talked about everything you can imagine. And to me, very quickly, she wasn't in the fitness space, she was in finance. She very quickly kind of took this like more of a mothering mentorship role because she was the first person in her family that went to college, and like I just very quickly wanted to learn from her because she had overcome so much to get where she was. Like there was definitely something that was transitional for her to get to where she was. Okay, so then she decides, she's like, I want to do one of those Live Well weekends. So she hosts it at our house. She gathers about like 10 friends for that as well. And so this was really interesting because for her, now when I reflect on it, for her, what she was seeing was me light up in a space that I felt comfortable. In the corporate space, I was definitely more stifled. And when I was in her house, and she was taking it in for different reasons. She wanted it for her friends to experience what I could offer, but she was taking it in for different reasons, for certain. because she's kind of analyzing me. She saw that how when I was doing something that was creative and expressing myself in that way, that I was just on fire, completely full of energy and on target for like creating something that was actually meaningful to other people. And she's like, it's not going to happen for her in the corporate space. Like maybe it could have, I don't know. So she then kind of, it was interesting too because she started to change the conversations to like, what's stopping you from doing this? And I thought at the time it was because I didn't know enough about business. She had gone to business school too, and I was like, oh, I don't know enough about business. And she very quickly like shut it down and was like, well then do something about it. Get practical. Go get an MBA. Go to school. And I was like, this is so outside of myself. Like,
Yeah.
I know health, I know human movement, I know nutrition, you know, all these things. And she's like, if that's what you want to do, then go do it. So I literally went, started like, researching some schools, and within a few months I was in an MBA program.
Within a few months. Wow.
Yep.
Activity drives the dream.
Yeah.
I like it.
She's telling me this, and she's doing it selflessly. Like, there's no agenda for her.
Yeah.
Me going and earning an MBA like did nothing for her other than just fill her up. That she was pushing me to something that she saw that like I wasn't quite seeing. So I kept telling her, just the MBA, and then when I went through that 2-year program, I was creating a version of Lip Wall Moms that it became. It was a version of it. It wasn't exactly that, but it was similar to it. And when I graduated, so I registered a month before I graduated, I'd just given birth 2 months prior to that. I registered the domain, and I can't tell you how many times I kept coming back and looking at it, but I wouldn't put anything on it. And then I graduated. I'll do it when I graduate. It was 1 month before I graduated. When I graduate, then I'm going to do something here. And I graduated, and it wasn't the excuse of, oh, I have a 3-month-old. It was, I had to take that hard look in the mirror where I realized suddenly this wasn't an issue of me not having something that I needed, which was an education in business to go start a business or to create a community. I realized it was a fear thing. Like I didn't have the courage to do it. I was too scared to do it. And for multiple reasons. One being, well, it's funny because it comes back to my mom, and my mom wasn't putting that. I just thought that she would be most proud of me if I stayed where I was. There's more to it. I gotta think more.
The fear.
Mm-hmm.
I want to lean into that real quick. What do you think you were most scared of? Do you think you were scared of fear of failure?
I knew if I started something I could build it,
Okay.
but it was like the fear of being in the beginning stages, like where I don't have anybody who's interested in this. I don't have a customer, especially because I just moved 2 hours away from where I was living after college. I moved out to Lehigh Valley, Pennsylvania, and I didn't know anybody.
Okay.
I literally was starting over again. And most people that I'd worked with for health and fitness, it was in person where I was living, so I knew I couldn't do that anymore. And then others that had come to me more like virtually, where
Yep.
I could create a plan for them and give that to them. It was kind of an expectation because they were a friend.
Yep.
So it almost was like, well, what gives me the right to charge for this? I've always been giving this away.
So you were
And I was
doing it
happy
for
to.
free for a
Yeah.
while, right?
For a long time.
Yeah, I remember when we first spoke, you were doing it for free then, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And I remember hearing some of this in your kind of tone, right?
Yeah.
Now, what are some like if you were to talk to yourself at that time period, right? And now you have the clarity of hindsight. What are some like actionable, tactical things that were helpful for you to overcome that fear and start to like make progress towards making a business and not just a passion?
I wish that I could say it was something like practical, tangible. For me, it was an event.
Okay.
It was, so I graduate from, and it was an event that gave me that deeper sense of self-awareness that what I was doing was a choice. I'm choosing to stay where I am.
Sure.
So then I graduate, and I'm still looking. I'm going multiple times back to the domain every single day, and just like picturing it in my head. But it wasn't until that friend and mentor, she was traveling a lot for work, and she was then suddenly diagnosed with. She became more symptomatic with colon cancer. And
This is Kelly.
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and I hadn't really been able to see her that much in person because she was kind of setting herself up for a very early retirement. She was in her early 40s. She was setting herself up for an early retirement. And So she was diagnosed, and then so when I heard that, I don't think I realized in that moment how quickly she was going to be gone. So they medically transported her back to her home, which was in York, so she could be with her family. And she actually hadn't even met my daughter yet. And you're gonna make me cry now.
Yeah.
So they medically transported her back, and do you ever, like, I didn't understand how sick she was until I saw her, and it was like, the time was running out. Like,
Visualization.
and, like, that was really where I learned that, like, time is the most precious gift you can give, and she didn't even know she was dying. Like, that was in her. When she was talking to me, I'm like, and her time was running out, and she wasn't even aware of it. So I, all of a sudden, like, I felt this, like, guilt or, like, burden, like, on my shoulders, because I was like, I'm wasting this woman's time. She gave me her time. She encouraged me to go do this degree, to go step into who it is I'm meant to be. And then I was just scared of it. It's insane to me. So I spent that last week of her life with her, just trying to, like, absorb, like, any, like, last thing that I could have from her. And it was hard for her to actually even be able to, like, have, like, words, just even be, like, she didn't even have that strength to even, like, communicate. I read her, so I was asked to speak, like, after she passed, I was asked to be the keynote speaker at her, but before she passed, I was asked to be the keynote speaker at her funeral. So while she was still here, and I was spending the day with her, I'd go back and I was writing, because I'm like, she needs to hear this before she's gone.
Yes.
So, like, when she finally did pass, it was the craziest thing, too, because I literally looked at my husband, and I was like, she's gone. Like, I know she's gone. And sure enough, I got the call.
Oh, man. You just felt it.
Yeah, 100%. It was like, an energy was, like, gone.
Yeah.
And then, that was, like, the moment where I was like, what am I doing? Like, I'm wasting time.
Yeah.
Like, I don't get this back. Like, it's not a variable I can control. Like, I can only control, like, my ability to actually execute on something. Like, she gave me her time. She gave me her wisdom. She gave me her guidance selflessly. And it was really in that moment where I could kind of define then what success was going to look like to me.
Okay.
And for me, that was going to be able to inspire people to just take the cards off the table. Like, when you get to that point, when your life is over, that you can say, like, I lived a life well because my cards are off the table. And to me, those cards are those chances that you have to take. Like, that, those things that you have to jump and grow your wings on the way down. That you, like, you know are in you, but you're just, there's all these other moving parts that are making you, like, live small. Like, I was almost inspired to live small because of fear.
So many people deal with that, and although a lot of us, although too many do have to deal with this, a lot of us don't necessarily have an event like cancer that puts things into perspective like that. We are all running out of time, whether or not we're conscious of it or not, right? And
it just made me so aware of, like, every second. And it was, so I spoke at her celebration of life, and I just was like, this, everything that she taught me, the time that she gave me isn't gone with her loss. I'm going to now take that time that she gave me and, like, execute on it. And she gave me years. She literally gave me years. I'm like, I can at least give this that amount of time to see if this is going to work and give me traction. What I noticed very quickly is, like, as soon as I, like, started to put something tangible on that site, that, like, I just was like, oh my God, I can breathe.
yes,
Like, yes, like, here it is. And it's funny because I was still, there's still, like, part of me that was a little bit nervous.
sure.
Because I was like, well, I'll just let people find this. I'm not going to let them know I'm creating this. Like, they'll just stumble on it, and this is
For
going to
sure.
become something. And then it was a few months later, I was like, okay, like, if this is going to become anything, I think because of being more of a storyteller, people, I want the audience that's interested in hearing the story, like, to rise.
Yes.
Like, to get to where it is that I want to go. And, you know, I wasn't seeking the person who was looking for that perfectly polished something. Like, I wanted the community of people that are, like, invested in, like, those small wins every single day, because that's what I was trying to do for myself. Like, that was the expectation. Like, just get this in today, then tomorrow I can do this. And, like, that literally, it was like, it was almost painful because I'm like, I want this, but, like, be patient. Like, be
Disciplined
patient.
growth,
Yeah.
right?
Exactly.
Damn, and the momentum just, like, builds off of each other. It starts to snowball, if
Yeah.
you will, right? That's the whole 1% better kind of
Yeah.
philosophy for sure.
Yeah.
So you started making improvements and progress on the site. You
Yeah.
started kind of leaning more and more into this.
Really just sharing what it is I had to say. Really, it was just, I've always been into or more captivated by more like motivational style writing and pieces, and
Okay.
and that just kind of became part of my identity too, especially with coaching.
Sure.
And I think even too before I came over to High Tide, when you asked me the question, like, what are 3 words that describes your community? And I'm like, I'm going to throw this back to them and ask, and they all universally said basically the same thing. I was like, the message is there, and the message is just me having the freedom to just be me. It was just like a self-expression that was actually received, and through like how I can best express it, which is like, to me, I was like, this is the win. Like, this is a win because I can actually do what it is that I want to do.
So that's
Great.
an interesting part that I don't think is necessarily as organic to a lot of health and wellness practitioners out there that are just getting started. Is it sounds like from the very early stages, you went about defining who it is that you are working with, working for. Now I know it's something that we continue to work
Yeah,
on and
refine.
evolve, right, and refine.
Yep.
But it sounds like, and I think it's been critical to your, what I would say has been fast success and incredibly rewarding to see, and inspiring to see.
Thank you.
Has been your ability and willingness to clearly define who it is that you serve best,
Yeah.
and who it is that should be, enveloped.
Yeah,
in
I
the
want the
community.
person who sees the benefits of small wins, and then like has the ability to be able to just like step back and like be patient. Like,
Okay.
I've always been communicating, like, trust the process. Know that if you're doing the right things, most of the time, it's moving you forward.
Yes.
And slow success doesn't mean there's no success that's happening. And slow success is like, it's fundamental, because it gives you the time to actually learn what you need to know, so that you can adhere to that long term. You know what
I
see
know
that?
exactly what
Yeah.
you mean.
Like, I feel it. Preach,
I love
preach.
it. Give me some. Okay, so you've clearly defined who your community is. You're starting to get a bit of traction personally as
Yeah.
well as with this community.
Yeah.
But I understand at this point you're not yet necessarily monetizing, so you're still kind of have this dual role, right?
Yeah. Oh,
So
100%.
when you're trying to figure out, okay, I need to make a living doing this.
Yeah.
What am I going to charge for this? I know that's a struggle that a lot of people face.
Yeah.
How did you work through that?
Okay, so for me, I had to do what was practical. So at the time, I didn't feel like I had the right to charge anything. To me, the priority one was, how do I build trust?
Okay.
So let me give you this for free. And maybe it wasn't the whole thing that this would, evolve into, but let me give you me for free, like access to me, access to, just community that can support you. If I could, because I felt like I was strongly speaking to a specific audience at the time. Of course, that's like gotten more refined now as we move forward, but so refresh my memory again. Where you want me?
No, you go wherever the hell you want to go. What I'm trying to get at is how you went from being free to making money from it.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
just tell me.
Yeah, so I had to, one, trust the process. That my main goal was to build trust, but I also knew that I would probably grow from referrals. So
Okay.
I wanted to have enough people that would be able to say indefinitely, hey, Alicia, you can trust her, she can help you and she cares. And then it was funny because they told me.
Yeah.
People started to trickle in that was like, why are you charging for this?
100%.
But it wasn't the people, it wasn't the friends that had always gotten it from me for free. It was the people that I had made a new established relationship with that were like, I almost feel like I'm taking advantage of this because you like give me so much of your time, and I was like, now's the time.
That is
Now I can do
so
that.
common too.
Yeah.
Like I hear that. I've seen that both myself as well as other trainers or coaches that have worked with us.
Yeah.
That it's the smart way to do it. I think exactly the evolution that you went on, the journey that you went on, is one that I wish more practitioners had the patience to do.
Yeah.
And I think that inevitably over time, if you're giving enough value, your clients will literally be asking how they can compensate for time because
Yeah.
they start to feel almost
Yeah,
like a
bad.
guilt for
Yeah.
because it's like, no, Alicia, I love this so much. I want to, one, invest in it, and two, I want to be able to ask more of you even.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly. And not like feel like I'm like doing something.
it's like, oh, she's already doing me a favor.
Yeah,
kind of deal,
exactly.
right?
But you know what? I was about a month into starting where a friend from a very good friend from college reached out and he gave me advice that I definitely took like very to heart in the beginning. One, to have patience with it, but two, like have that low overhead to do like whenever there's a problem, research the heck out of finding out how to solve that for free, like
Amen.
so that you don't carry the weight of like the cost of it. So I can't even tell you. I like research like every communication tool, like what free apps, like how can I use that in this way, and I knew because it was going to be virtual that I was going to have to be able to form a deeper relationship with people that were further away. How am I going to do that? Because that's what this is built on. It's built about like access and like quality access to coaching, and that's where I found that the app Marco, and it like gave me the convenience to like communicate in a way that just kind of seamlessly fit into my life. And
Sure.
like this, we could kind of almost storytell throughout the day.
Sure.
So that actually was a game changer and actually evolving the community more.
So what you were
Between
trying to do,
relationships.
which is what I think at least the people doing it right are also trying to do, and there's a lot of companies trying to build the technology that'll help support this.
Yeah.
You were trying to create, even mobilize the experience that you had at the beginning with
Yes.
Kelly,
Yeah.
relationship-wise.
Yeah.
You were trying to mobilize that type of experience digitally and
yeah,
virtually.
exactly,
right?
exactly. Be able to like not lose quality, but still be able to more like effectively and like seamlessly give that, like provide that access.
Sure.
Yeah.
wow.
Without it feeling like removed. Like
Yeah.
I don't want to leave you like a video that
Here's
like
a course,
yeah,
go
exactly.
do your thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to get into it.
100%.
I want to talk about it. I want to know what's going on. Like if you didn't show up to your workout, like what's going on?
Yeah.
Talk to me. I can't solve for everything, but I can at least be like I want to be the leader or the coach and have the community that also embodies this, that knows when to walk in front and lead by example, when to stand by your side and hold your hand, when to come from behind and like give you the kick in the ass. Like that's I don't want to just cultivate that in myself. Like I want that for everyone in the community, that they kind of almost feel like a sense of responsibility that they're part of this.
Yes.
Now I have to then also be able to like extend myself and say like I can bring you up too.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that's like the dream team right there, like within my community.
Oh my gosh. You're rocking and rolling now. Still doing these dual roles.
Yeah. It
What?
It didn't feel like rocking and rolling. It
Yeah,
felt,
I
like,
bet.
extremely
That's
painful.
so true. That's so
I was
true.
tired. I was tired as hell.
Every overnight success story was 10 years in the
Yeah,
making, right?
yes,
10 ugly
yes.
years.
Yeah.
So what gave you the courage to finally make the leap?
Okay, so I did what was practical, which was working full time. So in the hours and I was traveling between 3 states, I was traveling for work. I was spending 5 hours on the road. That I then became like my education time.
Sure.
Like I would just listen to things that I could just absorb, and I'm like, okay. And then I voice record all these things. It was ridiculous. That was my driving experience. But then when I come home, you do the family thing, kids, like my daughter in bed, I would spend those hours, like the hours then when she was sleeping, because she really didn't sleep too well, between 10, 2 in the morning were like go time for me. For creating that community, like creating content for it really,
Sure.
In those hours. But then what I started to realize was that like, all of a sudden it was this like aha moment again where, and it's funny because it was always like preceded by like something that reminded me of my friend in the past. And like all of a sudden then I was like, okay, like I kind of opened up my mind to then like, okay, what's happening in my life that's giving like it's making me tune in right now. And I would like get really still. And what I realized, I was like, man, how did I not see this? Was that I was giving my work was 100% of my time, but I was giving what it is that I wanted to do with my life. It was fulfilling me the most 100% of my leftover time, which is very different. I thought I was giving my dream, what it is that I wanted to do, 100% of my time, but it was really leftover attention. I was spending all these hours on the road working, 40 plus hours, and then all the drive time, let alone the drive time, thinking that I was giving it 100% of my attention because I was so dialed in those hours of 10 to 2 in the morning. I need to open this up. Why am I not giving that 100% of my attention? And if I have to do something practical, like have a job on the side or something, like that's my leftover attention.
Sure. Give your dream space to live in the world. I think what's
Yeah.
important too there is like not just the quantifiable time, but one thing that I think people fully underestimate, and we talk about at High Tide, we won't even hire part-time people necessarily, is
Yeah.
because of the context switching that has to happen.
Yes.
So it's not just like you have 8 hours, you split 4 hours and 4 hours.
Yeah.
It's the 2.5 hours you miss because you're trying to like switch between, you know, different
And that's why I
mindsets.
never took like a part-time job.
Yeah.
Like as soon as I talked to my husband, kind of just got like the okay that he also trusted. I'd already monetized too at that point, and he kind of gave me the okay. He's like, I trust you. Like
Wow,
I know that this
supportive.
is I know this is where you need to be.
Sure.
But I definitely felt like the monkey jump on my back then, because I almost felt pressure that I gave up this, and I'm like, how can I take like lower what you were having before, like really more of those like material things.
Yes.
I knew that all those things, those extra things that we would get, or
Yeah.
you know, how we'd spend our money would have to go away to be able to do it. But it also then put the pressure on, and I do really well with that pressure. Like I always had the coaches, especially my high school track coach, that would come over at like the end of the meet, and he's like, you're going to be in this event now, like, and this is what we need to actually be able to win this. And I'd be like, get on, like, I'm ready for this, like,
Yeah.
let's go. And it's always then, like, I've been able to channel that pressure then to just execute it. And like, maintaining that flexibility then too.
Wow. Okay. So you made the jump.
I felt so
Husband
good. That next day, I can't even tell you, I woke up and I was like, I can do what I
Let's
want
do
today. I'm
this.
like, I can literally do what I want today.
Yeah.
And like, there was just go time. And I think that's
So you
also
just went back to bed and took a nap?
hell no. I was like, let's go. I like literally I stood up out of bed, and I was like, I can freaking do this.
Yeah.
Like I can do this right now. And it also, like, I've also spent little time reflecting. Like I spent a little time reflecting on things that haven't. How do I say this? So the lessons that I learned with Kelly, like when I look back and I reflect, like they're very like. How do I say this? I totally lost it. I forgot how I was going to say that. Darn.
Move
I
on?
lost it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I feel like we'll go to the end.
Yeah.
We're definitely leaving stuff out, but
I know,
let's
there's
just
so
go
much.
to the end. Okay, so has it? That's one that's been an incredible journey. One that I've been incredibly privileged to see even a small part of, and over the past several days having you in town and with the team, the family, if you will.
Yeah.
It has been an absolute pleasure hearing all of these things unfold and sharing some of these stories with you, and I feel like we're closer than ever, and I can't tell you how excited I am about seeing what the next chapters look like.
Yeah, me too.
So, well, thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for taking the time today.
Thank you very
Appreciate
much.
it. Boom. Good stuff.